All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Jennie Magiera. I'm the Digital Learning Coordinator for the Academy for Urban School Leadership, which is a network of 25 Chicago public schools. Thanks so much for joining us today. Today we're going to be talking about how technology integration is no longer enough, about redefining your innovative classroom, what that means, and what it looks like to get us started. This is a series of 4 webinars about which we're going to explore digital learning and technology innovation in the classroom. And this first one hopefully will get your mind burning about some concepts about where you want to go and how to forge your own path. With me today I have 2 guests, Chad Kafka and Carolyn Skiba. We're just going to say hi to them real quick and then meet them more formally in a little bit. So hi Chad, Carolyn.
Hello.
There they are. I think
Hello.
there they are. And we'll get to hear more about them. But really quickly, we're going to set some foundation for you so you can get some ideas going. Go ahead and ask questions in the question box there on your screen, and we'll be happy to address them in the latter part of this webinar. And if you aren't really sure what to expect, then hopefully this quick foundation overview will let you have an idea of where we're going in the next 4 episodes. So, today I want to start off with a story. As an elementary school teacher, we did a lot of fairy tales, and so today we're going to talk about the 3 Little Pigs. And hopefully everyone's heard of this fairy tale, but I like to talk about them because that third little piggy was a bit of an early innovator. He said, you know what, everyone's doing the straw stick thing, but I'm going to build my house out of this revolutionary thing called bricks. And I think it's going to be stronger, it's going to last throughout all the seasons, it's going to rock. And so let's rewrite the story for a second and say that that first little piggy who built his house out of straw found out about this revolutionary and innovative new material called bricks. And he said, hey, I'm going to write a grant, and I'm going to get some of those bricks, and I'm going to build my house with bricks. And he's a great writer. He majored in writing in college. So the first little piggy wins the brick grant, and he gets the bricks. And he goes back to a straw house, and he super glues them all over his house. So he just says, you know what, I already have my straw house structure. I like my straw house bay windows. So with these new things, I'll just add them on to the existing structure. Well, we don't have to be a physics teacher to know what's going to happen to his house. It's going to fall down. So that first little piggy is still sad. The big bad wolf still comes after him. It's not such a great ending or happily ever after. Unfortunately, that's what a lot of us are doing in our classrooms, however. We find out about an innovative new material, and we take our old materials, like paper and pencil, and then we take the new material, like iOS devices, other tablet computers, Chromebooks, laptops, anything else you might think of, and we simply duct tape it or super glue it to our existing structure. And that's not working for a lot of classrooms. It's not really seeing the full potential of what you can do with these devices. So what we're recommending is to be a little bit brave and knock down your existing structure so that you can rebuild or blueprint from the ground up. And that might seem really scary. Getting your hands dirty and breaking down your structure is terrifying, especially for those of us who have been practicing for quite some time. But when you are able to unpack what you're doing and then rethink it and come up with a new way to utilize the devices in a much more effective and efficient way as the backbone of your classroom or learning environment, you'll see that they're used a lot better. It helps, though, to have a plan. So when you're drawing up your blueprint, you need to have an idea of where you're going. And so we turn to different continuums and models, one of which being Dr. Ruben Puentedera's SAMR model. Not all of us use this one. There's also TIMS from South Florida, TIMS, and several other that help guide people, and they all have the same basic idea. What they are, if you want to hear more about SAMR, you can contact Dr. Puentedera. There's his email address and his Twitter handle, and his blog is hyposis.com. If you Google SAMR, you'll see him pop up right away as well. But all of these models, the SAMR model, the TIMS, they're basically continuums of effective technology use. Think about the Bloom's taxonomy of innovation. So there's an entry level all the way to a higher level, and like all continuums, it's okay to go back and forth and modulate throughout them. There's 4 levels, substitution all the way through redefinition, and we're not going to go through them in too much depth, but the main thing is that the final 2 levels, modification and redefinition, are the transformative levels. So he breaks the model into the beginning, which is enhancement, and then the end, which is transformation. And so we really want to be always moving towards transformation, because when you're investing in your classrooms and learning spaces, technology can be quite expensive, and we want to make sure that we're getting the most bang for our buck. So to really quickly go through what that looks like, we'll take an example like flashcards. So let's say we have our multiplication flashcards. To substitute them, we'd simply be having a app program that does the exact same thing that flashcards does. Here's the fact, here's the answer, big whoop. Then you've got augmentation, where you move past that and you might have a timer, you might have a scorekeeper, and it's augmenting or adding something slight to the original activity. So these are just enhancing it. When we get into the transformative level, we're modifying the activity. In this app, we're seeing kids utilize the product to read a graph to determine what's going on in this baseball game. So the entire fact fluency concept is couched in a completely new schema, and the kids are having to think about this in a more rigorous way. But then the highest level is redefinition, and in this example we have a student who uses FaceTime or Google Hangouts to talk to another student in another classroom or even another part of the world about an authentic math problem that utilizes fact fluency, or to discuss their metacognitive process for memorizing things. Do they use a multiplication wrap or perhaps an array? What did they do to understand the concept of multiplication and what was happening? So you're pushing kids to not only memorize the fact, but to discuss the analysis of their metacognition, to and analyze the thinking of others. And we're hitting a lot more not only Common Core state standards, but getting our kids to be actual mathematicians rather than data, spitting out random pieces of data. A robot could do that. The point of this whole graphic is that substitution is the easiest area to hit. Much like a dartboard, it's got the biggest circle. So that's where you see a lot of activities in many classrooms and most of the apps in any app store, no matter the device. However, one really strong redefinition activity or app is going to far outweigh all of those substitution activities, apps, programs, or use cases for devices. So we really do want to be leaning towards redefinition when we're using the digital learning and devices in our classrooms. So when we talk about technology integration, we want to put that in the vocabulary graveyard. So this is what we usually see in many classrooms after school. We see the teacher sitting around saying, hey, how can I use that stuff that I have in my classroom today? Every single day they're wondering it because they're not bringing it into the backbone and the foundation of their classroom. So what happens with the technology more often than not, you see those cows or carts on wheels sitting in the closet gathering dust, and you have crying, sad-faced iPads. So we want to, like we said, put technology integration in the vocabulary graveyard and instead think about redefining. How can we get those devices out and in the hands of our students every single day? How can we think about how they can get more field time, if you will? And instead of having teachers think about the technology use on a unit-to-unit basis, how can it be part of the fabric through which they weave their classroom tapestry, and think about how are they using these devices all the time as part of who they are. And so with me today are two amazing educators who help their colleagues think about this on a daily basis. First up is Chad Kafka, and that's his Twitter handle, @ChadKafka. Can you introduce yourselves to our listeners and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Chad Kafka. I work in Franklin Public Schools, which is just a little south of Milwaukee. I started here 7 years ago. I started as a business computers teacher teaching middle school classes, and then my job over the last 4 or 5 years has morphed into tech coach, where I'm getting together with teachers during team plan time, helping them to figure out how to use technology in the classroom. Sometimes that is figuring out logistics for a website or a tool they're going to use or a device they're going to use, and then sometimes that's me, planning an activity with them and doing some team teaching to hopefully model how that can be used, hopefully to the standards that Jenny was just sharing. That's the ultimate purpose. Outside of that, I do a lot of other technology consulting or working with other educators, speaking at conferences, and just sharing any and all on what we're doing.
Awesome. Thanks, Chad. And also with us today is the amazing Carolyn Skibba @SkibTech on Twitter. Carolyn, can you tell us about what you do?
Sure. Hi, everyone. As Jenny said, I'm Carolyn. I am a teacher / technology specialist / I wear many other hats at a Chicago public school called Burley School. We are a pre-K through 8 elementary school serving approximately 575 students. And I've been at Burley since 1999, so I have in that time really seen a lot of change in terms of our approach to technology, in terms of the equipment available, as well as in terms of the models that we are currently working to implement in our classrooms. So I feel like it's only in recent years that we're really beginning to reach these redefinition targets that Jennie described so well, and I'm excited to be here to share with you some of the bumps along the way as well as some of the successes that we're seeing at our school.
Awesome. Thanks, Chad. Thanks, Carolyn. So without further ado, we're going to start off, and we want this to be a discussion. So the three of us are obviously going to be chatting quite a bit, but we invite you to participate in the discussion so it's not quite as sit-and-getty as a webinar can be. So please, please, in your question box, feel free to ask questions, add comments. We will respond to you out loud. And if you also challenge, if you hear anything that doesn't sit right or that gives you a bit of cognitive dissonance, please feel free to say so, and we'd be glad to hear about that as well. So our first question is, what does redefinition look like or not look like? And I think that this is a really loaded question because it's incredibly subjective, and it really depends not only on grade level, subject, and also the background of the school. So Carolyn, if we could start with you, what does that mean to you when you think of transformative education?
Well, the first thing I want to say about that is, as much as we are all aiming for redefinition, I want to just reassure people a little bit that even in our own environments, we are not constantly living at this redefinition level. So even though that's the target and that's what's going to bring the greatest change to our classrooms, there are times when we're saying, okay, we do feel like those flashcards are more efficient, or having the kids draw in an iPad app on the rug is easier than bringing all these baskets of markers over to the rug. So I just want to acknowledge that there are many uses of technology that can add value to your classroom, but I definitely agree with Jennie when she states that it's not a good investment for your school if that's where you stop. And so at our school, what redefinition really looks like is creating or offering new learning opportunities that were never possible before. So really beginning to bring something new to the curriculum that wasn't previously possible with traditional tools. And the three areas where we're really seeing that and working on that at our school are student content creation, differentiation, and assessment. And so I'll just give you a couple quick highlights from those three, and then I can pass it off to Chad to share his thoughts. But in the area of student content creation, we're just finding that the opportunities for students to use technology to create and to express their thinking have expanded incredibly with our technology program. Specifically, we currently have 6 one-to-one iPad classrooms in grades 1, 5, and 6. And the iPad enables students to use video, to use text, to use audio recording and drawing, as well as their practicing their writing skills and using that to communicate knowledge. And by being able to create work that is so multifaceted, but then is also able to tap into students' own learning styles, and then to be able to take that work and share it with a broader audience beyond the classroom has made student work a different type of experience for students. It's no longer work that's just hanging on the bulletin board and seen by anyone who happens into the classroom. It's online in the student blogs, it's on the teacher website, it's shared in certain classrooms through Twitter, and it really gives kids a sense that we are experts, we can teach others. And that's where we start to see the real shift in the role of the student in terms of how they're approaching their learning and what their teacher-student relationship looks like in the classroom. Another area that goes hand in hand with student content creation is the area of differentiation, because obviously having a student be able to express themselves verbally can offer new opportunities for a student to show what he or she knows or to reflect on his or her own learning that wouldn't have been available before. And if you have a student, whether it's a younger student or a student with special learning needs or a student who just happens to have writing is not their forte, being able to offer them multiple ways to express their knowledge is absolutely invaluable, and it really can be transformative for that child to be able to say, hey, I am an expert on this, and if I can't write you a beautiful essay about it, I can explain and persuade and influence you through these other tools. The differentiation piece also comes in with instruction when we're able to offer students different types of media and also use the technology to offer different materials to different groups seamlessly and in a way that really works in a smooth, functional way in the classroom. And we can share some more details about that if you're curious. I know Jennie has really sort of mastered the differentiation workflow, and I'm sure she'll share some of those strategies with you. The last area I just want to touch on quickly that has been transformed and redefined at our school is assessment, because rather than just looking at a finished product, the technology really enables students to capture more about their thinking and the process behind the product. I'll give you a very quick example of that, and then I'll pass it along. When we have students create, for example, a book where they are showing their understanding of nonfiction features. So maybe a student is making a book where they're using a table of contents in their own book, they're using diagrams and captions and other features that we've been studying in class. By looking at their finished book, I can tell that that child knows what features are supposed to be in the book because they were able to mimic or to copy the strategies that I showed in class. But if I want to know, can the child really explain to me what they were thinking when they put in their table of contents or when they use that diagram or they use that bold text, I may not have the opportunity to go around to 30 children and ask them to explain that to me. But with the iPad, students can snap photos of their work and then they can record themselves talking about it. And so now I have an assessment piece that isn't just the finished product, but that captures student thinking and really reveals information about how the student was approaching the work and how the student understands the content. So those are some of the areas we're really excited about and that we do feel technology is redefining at our school. Chad, are you next?
Awesome, Carolyn.
Yes.
There are a lot of examples
okay, sorry.
that
I was on mute there.
Oh, there you go. Sorry. Cut off quickly there.
Yeah, no, that was great. That was excellent. A lot of great examples there, some that I'll tie into here. What does redefinition look like or not look like? I think one of the challenges that I faced going into this role of tech coach is coming out of the classroom and then working in a role where I was helping teachers. I don't think a lot of teachers could think past what they've always done. And that's not a knock against teachers. That's just, now that we have access to all these different tools, how do we take those tools and do something different with them in the classroom? How do we make a personal connection with the students, or how do the students make a personal connection to the subject matter that they're looking at? And that's one of the things I've been struggling with and learning as I've been trying to coach teachers in how to do that. Our big push this year is in personalized learning, and that's been a big district, not initiative, because we're very specific to not call it an initiative, but just to kind of change the way that we're structuring our classrooms and structuring how we offer content to our students. And so when I look at the word redefinition and what that means, and Jenny did a great example there, a great job of sharing examples of that, we look at how do we raise that bar higher? How do we raise what we're doing and take it to the next step? How do we engage the students in the content and then make it personalized enough for them so that they take that content and they go a certain direction with it? And I'll give you a few examples of where we're doing that right now. One example is through our language arts program here at the middle school. Our 7th and our 8th grade teachers over the last year into this year have been working in the workshop model where they're making more of a personal connection with the students, doing conferencing and doing some other things to really get more focused on the reading and writing, but also to give each student what they need in terms of going further in reading and writing. One of the projects I'm helping them with right now is they, in the past, have done an informational writing piece where the students would do research on a topic and write something up, and it was informational about that topic, let's say snowboarding. So the students would research snowboarding, they would write a paper, and they would turn the paper in. Okay, so that was the way we had always done it. So now where we're going with using different types of technology and also personalizing it to the student is now that the students are still doing their research and they're learning hopefully how to research better and find better topics for or better things that go along with their topic, but they're taking that writing and now we're having them create a website around that topic. So when you talk about really being a master of that knowledge or that content that the student is researching, let's say snowboarding, now they're able to take that, and like Carolyn mentioned with text features, they're able to publish that on a website. So they start a Google site, they create different pages related to their topic. One might be on the types of snowboards. One might be on the tricks you can do on a snowboard. And not only are they putting their writing in there that they researched about the topic, but now they're able to also bring in that other media to kind of exemplify what that topic is about. So they're able to put in videos of somebody doing tricks on their snowboard or put in pictures of the different types of snowboards that you can purchase. So I think it's taking that thing that was initially just writing, which we've always done writing, and now really growing it and making it something different and totally redefining how they share that work back to not only their teacher but their peers, and if they publish it through a website, maybe even the world. So that's one example of one of the things we're doing here in our school. One of the biggest things I get into discussions with teachers is whenever they contact me about needing help with something technology related, I really try to focus them on what is your purpose? What do we want the students to be able to do? And let's start there, and then we try to find the technology that goes along with it. We're very blessed in this building. We have access to all different types of computers. We have a few Mac carts. We have some Windows carts. We have a Chromebook cart that we just purchased last year. We have an iPad cart that we got through a grant, and an iPod Touch cart that we got through a grant. So all those things are available for checkout. But like Jenny mentioned when she was explaining her story, sometimes that technology is just sitting in the room, and the teacher knows they can only get it for a day or two to do an activity, and so they're more focused on the activity. Of that technology is there, come teach me how to do something with that technology. Okay, well, that's not the question we should be asking. The question we should be asking is, what do your students need to learn? What do they need to go further with? What do we need to do to open the doors more to personalize whatever this content is to that student, and to personalize the relationship that the student has with the content, and be able to have them show through assessment or through whatever it is they're creating that they understand, hopefully learning and maybe taking responsibility for their learning as they go. So a little bit on my thoughts on redefinition there and some things that we're doing. Hopefully that gave you some examples there of what we're doing.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. And I think that something I heard you both say, Chad and Carolyn, what resonated with me is this common idea of student creation, right? That it's that the kids are doing something. They're not just consuming content and information, but they're becoming digital authors in and of themselves. So what I'm going to try and do right now, and I'm not sure if this is going to work, is let's see if I can do this. Cancel. Can you guys see my desktop if I do this? Are you still seeing the PowerPoint?
Back into the presentation. Yeah, there, now we see your desktop.
All right, let's see if I can pull up this problem. I share this a lot, so if I've seen any of you in the past at other presentations, you might have already seen this video, but I wanted to show you, this is an example that kind of hits both on what Carolyn was talking about as well as Chad, I think, which is to think about a couple of things. Like, how are we going to change the way we've done things in the past to get the same, we want to get at the same end, right, to make our kids better mathematicians, authors, readers, everything, artists, musicians, but how can we do it better, more efficiently, more effectively, utilizing technology? So here's an example. This is something from Dan Meyer, and if you don't know Dan Meyer, then he's a great math guru out of California, and he has something called 3 Acts, where he uses videos to prompt kids to create their own authentic math problems. So I watched a lot of his videos on his blog. If you just, I think it's DY Dan, but if you just Google Dan Meyer, M-E-Y-E-R, you can find it. And it inspired me to create some of my own real-world math problems. So I shared this video with my kids on their iPads. It's just me at the grocery store.
All right, boys and girls, here I am in the dairy section of Dominic's by my house, and I'm getting some stuff for dinner, and I need some sharp cheddar cheese. So I see here that I can get this Lucerne brand sharp cheddar cheese. It's 8 ounces, and for this package, I would be paying $2.99. So it's on sale today for $2.99 for 8 ounces of sharp cheddar cheese. So $2.99 for 8 ounces for the Lucerne brands.
So I go on in that video to find more cheese, and then my students took to a screencasting app, in this case Educreations, although recently we've changed loyalties and have started using an app called Doceri, D-O-C-E-R-I, both free, because of iPad workflow needs. And then here's Eddie solving the problem. Now when I looked at Eddie's answer, because I also had him submit his answer through an exit ticket online, I thought he was crazy because I wanted him to find the rate. I wanted him to say it was something cents per ounce for the cheese. But since I didn't give him the question, he determined his own problem and thought of it his own way, and he said the answer was $16. And when I thought that Eddie was not paying attention, he was one of those students who much would rather draw on the bottom of his desk than pay attention during math class, then I watched this video and I realized that he understood it better than probably I did. So let's take a look at Eddie's metacognition here.
$10. That was $10, and it was 32 pounds, 32 ounces of shredded cheese. Then she went and found there's a little bag of cheese for 8 ounces, $3. This was $10. So I did 32 divided by 8. So she tried to find which one she would have more to say less on. So I did 32 divided by 4, it was 8. So 4 is my answer, because I was guessing on that one, but I remember that 8 times 5 is 40. So then I noticed that, so I did 4 times each 8 ounces. So both of these equal 32 ounces. All this 32 ounces. And one of these 32 ounces. So then I did 4 times 3, then 4 times 4, and it was 4 times 4, and it was 16.
So Eddie didn't label his numbers, which is incredibly frustrating as a math teacher, but his mathematics was great. Chad, Carolyn, did you see all the great math that he did there? Were you, I know.
Sorry, I was muted again.
That's okay.
Yes, I did see the math he was doing, and
So,
it was interesting.
So he drew pictures. He was an estimator. He had a lot of different thinking going on there. But basically, he went through a proportion instead of finding the rates, which was pretty cool to find out, which I would never have found out because after he was done, Eddie was like, I finished it. I don't want to talk about that problem anymore. It's like people who are writing dissertations or papers, like it's done, let's put it away, let's move on. That's how my kids were with their math. So capturing their math thinking in real time was pretty amazing, which is what Carolyn was talking about in capturing her kids' thinking. And so Eddie was a 5th grader, but this is happening with primary kids as well. Carolyn, can you talk about your amazing empowered 1st graders and their use of Croquet?
Oh, absolutely. So first I have to give credit to an incredible colleague of mine. Her name is Kristen Zemke-Fastaben, and I'm putting her Twitter handle right now in the chat. She tweets at 1st Grade Thinks, and you're also welcome to get in touch with me if you'd like to talk to her more. But she discovered this amazing app called Croquet, which is spelled like croak, like a frog, and then I-T. And why that showed up as a link on there, I don't know. I'm not sure that's correct, but I tried to chat it to you so you could see the, because it has the dot. At any rate, what Croquet lets you do is record your voice for 30 seconds. It does cut you off after 30 seconds, and then it immediately uploads that audio clip to a website and gives you the link. You can then take that link and share it in multiple ways. So for example, let's say we had a 1st grader who wanted to recommend a book. And that 1st grader is not going to be able to sit down and write a book review necessarily using text. And even if he or she did, it would be very challenging for his or her classmates to access it. So here, Jenny's pulling up some info about Croquet. Thank you. And so what Kristen has the kids doing instead is recording their voice. They get that 30-second clip. They send the link through email to their teacher. Then Kristen can take the link and make a QR code and tape it to the front of the book. Kids are then able to circulate around the classroom and say, hey, this book has been recommended by one of my classmates. I want to hear what they said. They scan the QR code. It immediately takes them to the webpage, the Croquet webpage that has the audio on it, and then other kids can hear what one another say about that particular book. We also have a student named Becca who presented for us at, we recently had a session called App Speed Dating where the kids were teaching adults about their favorite apps. And Becca, independently at home, decided to go on her blog, her 1st grade blog, which we do through KidBlog. This is a tool we use in multiple classrooms. And tell people about it. And so again, she's not going to write paragraphs and paragraphs about it, but you can see here on the screen it says, I'm going to teach adults about Croquet. I'm so excited. And then she talked a little bit about it. I don't know if you're going to play that recording, Jenny.
Yeah, I'm going to try and unplug my headphones. I tried holding my speaker up to my mic last time, and it wasn't super successful, so we'll try this instead. So I'm going to unplug here and see if you can hear her better. All right.
Hi, my name is Becca, and I am teaching. Hi, my name is Becca, and I am teaching Croquet, and I'm teaching adult teachers if they don't know Croquet, because it's a really fun one, and also I like it. So I want to teach them, and it's Friday 2013, and the day is what? February 1st, and I'm so excited to do it because I am teaching the class. It's so excited.
Right, so I love that for so many reasons. First, obviously, because it's completely adorable and hilarious. But you can also hear her excitement and her enthusiasm that just comes through so clearly when you can actually hear her voice. And you can hear that not only does she know she's going to be sharing her technology expertise with other people, but she also knows that by posting this on her blog, she is telling the world that she is about to go and teach adults about technology, and she's going to be the expert. And as you can see, she got 38 comments on this blog post, some of which were from outside the United States. So think about what a transformative piece this is for a young learner who can say, wow, something I did really makes a difference, but other people are also connecting to me and connecting to my experience, giving me feedback, giving me encouragement, participating with me in my learning and what I'm experiencing at school. And it just makes school a completely different experience for these kids. It really connects them to the outside world. It really gives them a sense of their own power and expertise, and really offers them a chance to say, hey, when I learn something, it's not about a grade. It's not about not getting in trouble or just getting my homework done or pleasing my teacher. It's really about teaching the world, communicating with the world, and that's one of the pieces that Croquet is really offering to our students in a way that is very, very easy to manage. We absolutely love it.
Can I ask you a question about it real quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
More so because I'm sure there's educators listening, and I'm just curious because I think one of the problems we always run into is there are some great tools out there, but sometimes there's those barriers to entry where kids have to have an account to do something, or the teacher has to create an account and then upload their students, and we sometimes hit those walls where an average teacher who maybe doesn't have the time to do that or doesn't know where to start with something like that struggles with that.
Mm-hmm.
So with this service, there's no account needed. It just records. It just makes it a web link, and it's hosted there for however long, indefinitely.
Absolutely, and this is, and it's free, which of course also can be a barrier if you're dealing with cost issues and budget issues, as of course we all are these days in our schools. So Croquet's a completely free app. In terms of barriers, also the simplicity of use. Obviously, we have 6-year-olds using this very independently. There's 3 buttons. There's the push to start, push to stop, push to share. That's it. And then again, it uploads it automatically, so you're not dealing with a situation where students are sending you an audio file as a file that you then, as a teacher, have to say, all right, well, how am I going to share this item? I have this thing.
Exactly.
If you can email somebody a link, tweet a link, post a link on your class webpage, do any of those things, or even just write it down and put it on a flyer for the families and be like, hey, do you want to listen to what we did today? It's a great way to empower kids to communicate, but without a lot of burden on the teacher.
That's awesome.
Okay, great. Let's move on to our next question. Let's see if I can go back. All right, so you guys see the slide again?
We do.
Awesome. All right, so I think we've already started touching upon this, and I think Carolyn brought up another amazing point, which is redefinition is kind of where we want to be headed towards, but that doesn't mean that we live there. It's like Disney World. It's fun to go. You go there once in a while, but you got to go home sometimes too. And being at substitution levels sometimes is important. When you're first trying something or a new app or a new device, you might start off at the substitution or augmentation level, or if you're talking about TIMS, the entry level. And that's okay. And you might move forward and move backwards. It's not a linear progression. It's going to go up and down. So when I ask this question, how do you get there, I'm not asking how do you move into redefinition, but how do we continue to push ourselves towards a transformative trajectory so, as you said too, Carolyn, we don't get mired or stuck and say, all right, we're here in substitution. That's where we're staying. We're never going to leave.
Right, and I think there are a couple things I'd like to share about our approach in terms of bringing about transformation and innovation at our school. And the first, and I think most critical piece, is to not try to spread the innovation too wide and too shallow. We all have colleagues who are at schools, and maybe some of you are at schools like this as well, where there's one cart and it's for the whole school to use. And in a model like that, what you end up seeing is people who are only checking the card out for particular projects, for particular events, for particular, for publishing, or, oh, today's our blog day, today's our email day, whatever it is. And as Jenny said earlier, what you really want is you want to see technology woven into the fabric of student learning so that students really can start to take on a more empowered role in the classroom and take a different stance in terms of their relationship to their learning. And you're not going to see that with an implementation that is not going deep enough. And so while I understand that there can be issues related to equity in a school and to people feeling like, well, it's not fair, why did so-and-so get the iPads and so-and-so did not, your school is not, I don't feel a school is going to be successful with technology that is spread too thin. And so one of the reasons I feel like things have worked well for us at Burley is we started off with a small and focused implementation that was in classrooms where people really said, hey, I have a vision for how I want to implement these devices. I understand that it's going to be a bumpy road. I understand that I'm being called upon to develop practices for my colleagues to adopt when we're able to get more equipment. And there's somebody in every building who is that person. And if you've chosen to come to this webinar, you're probably that person in your building. So I would encourage administrators, and I don't know if there are administrators on right now as well, but I would encourage administrators to really think about where are you going to be able to see that deep, powerful, compelling change in terms of how teaching is happening and students are learning and interacting with content and interacting with others, because that's what's going to drive change in your school. So I think looking at it, building wide in that way, and really identifying pioneers and making sure that those people who are really ready to try, fail, innovate, and lead are able to be given that opportunity, because that's going to create internal models where colleagues are going to take a look and say, wow, I've seen what's going on down the hall in 106. I want to try that. Or I know I don't have one-to-one iPads, but maybe I could get 2 or 3 and start implementing some of those practices in different ways while we're waiting for more equipment to become available. So I think a really rich implementation, a rich and focused implementation, spreads like wildfire throughout a school and really builds curiosity and energy for continued innovation and continued participation. I would say as an individual teacher, if you're an individual teacher alone in your classroom and saying, all right, well, I've got equipment and I'm really looking to push myself and to be innovative, I would look for a couple areas where technology really does offer something new and different to the curriculum. And I'll return to those pieces that I talked about earlier. I think when it comes to student content creation, you can make something completely different happen in your classroom. When it comes to accessing an authentic audience, there's absolutely no way that Becca is going to get feedback on her blog post from 38 people around the world without technology. I mean, she would write it, she'd hang it on the bulletin board, people would see it and think it was nice, and that would be fine. So by expanding that authentic audience, so student content creation, authentic audience, assessment, and differentiation, those are some of the places where you're really going to be able to see the door open and new things become possible. The one last thing I want to say about this piece is that it's okay to start with one tool that you love. So Jenny showed that example of the Screencasting app. And there are many different screencasting apps. There's ScreenChomp, there's EduCreations, there's Show Me, there's Doceri, which is the one Jenny says she now is using most commonly. There's a whole suite of these that are available. And basically what they are is they're draw and talk tools. But when a kid can draw and talk, all of a sudden they're not just handing you a piece of paper and you have to figure out what you were thinking. You can hear them talk. You know what they were thinking. A kid doesn't just have to sit and turn and talk to a partner and say, hey, I'm going to show you what I was thinking when I did my math. They can create a video using one of these screencasting tools, share it with the whole class, and then say, hey, I made this video. What do you think? This is my approach. And kids suddenly have access to one another's ideas in ways that weren't previously possible. So I think it's okay to just pick a tool or two that you love and that you're good at and that are easier for you and that are free and accessible, and say, wow, I really want to explore this from multiple angles. And then once you get comfortable with that, branch out into other things. Jenny's pulling up a website right now that's from our app speed dating session, the one Becca presented in, along with several more students from my school as well as Jenny's school. And these are some of the apps that, again, you'll notice this is a small collection. But these are some examples of apps that really can make an enormous difference in terms of how kids are approaching their learning. And we do have some resources on links from each of these app icons that you could take a look at later. And I'll post the link down in the chat while Chad shares his thought on the subject about how we're going to get there in terms of really making all this happen. It's an adventure.
And Chad, not to boss you about, I'm sure you have ideas of what you want to share, but if I could please entreat you to also share your awesome way that you support the teachers that you support in professional learning, specifically your YouTube page, which I keep saying that you should monetize because all of us are using it too. So if you could share that, and I'm going to pull that up while you're talking, and feel free to talk about whatever else you had in mind, but I really think that our listeners would gain from hearing about that.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks for the compliment. How do you get there? That's the big question, and that's, I think, the roles that we're in with working with teachers. That's kind of our question that we face every day: is how do we do things differently? How do we push learning further? Not just with technology, but just learning. Period. One of our ways to try to do this year is we have a half hour of what used to be called tech tool time, and it still technically is, of half-hour professional development at each of our buildings each month, where the teachers used to come and sit, and it was a sit-and-get session. We would show them some new tool that they could use in their classroom, and that was pretty much it. What we did instead for this year was we changed to more of a personalized learning approach, where we wanted the teachers to look at their curriculum that they're teaching, take something from that they wanted to make more personalized, and figure out over the course of these half-hour staff developments how to do that. So some examples I can give you. Working with our math in 7th grade and 8th grade, they're implementing a new math curriculum this year. And so their focus was going to be this math curriculum also had an online component, and they were going to be able to generate reports from that. So they wanted to better utilize these reports to really figure out where the kids were and what kids maybe needed a little bit more going through some of it again, or some one-on-one teaching versus some kids that were ready to go on to the next level. So they were going to use reports for that. I'm looking at my list here that's actually on this big whiteboard here in my office. We have our language arts group is looking at how they can do a little bit more with flipped learning, and so when they set that as their goal, that then meant for them as the teacher, they needed to learn how to record a screencast. What makes a good screencast? Where do I put that screencast so other people can see it? How do I put that on my website? So over the course of, however many months we meet for that tech tool time, the teachers would kind of set their own path for what they wanted to do to make their learning for their students more engaging, more personalized, better, if you want to call it that. So that's one way we put that model in place this year to try to get teachers to do that. There's some ups and downs with it. Some teachers are taking it by the horns and really doing something great. This is the month, February here, is I'm actually leading this tomorrow, where the teachers have to kind of reflect on what they've done up to this point. Some of them haven't implemented this new thing yet with their students. Some of them have, and they can reflect on that. So this is kind of the gut check month, where figure out what's working, what's not working, and then try to implement that thing again. So I'm talking a little ethereal there, but each department really took ownership of whatever it was that they wanted to do. Our science department in 7th grade, they wanted kids to do better with their writing when it came to science and write their science explanations better. So Carolyn mentioned KidBlog earlier, so we got KidBlog set up where the kids could post about science, and the teachers have been really creative with how they're using that. They're showing them 2 videos, one on suckers that parents are giving students to get to their kids to get the chickenpox virus in the hopes of giving chickenpox to kids while they're young. That's one video they watched. The other video was on a recent cancer treatment where they were actually infecting cancer patients with HIV in the hopes that the HIV would attack the cancer cells. And so the students, as their first writing project, were presented with these 2 videos, and they had to pick which video they wanted to talk about and what they thought about it. Oh my gosh, that's like college level stuff compared to when we went through college. So seeing that kind of thing come from this, where the tool doesn't matter. The kids are just, their learning is where they're able to dissect and kind of synthesize that information and share back what they think about it. When you get into those opinions and they're able to back it up with what they're learning in science class, I mean, that's just the kind of stuff that we're really trying to do more of. So I don't know if I answered your question so much there, but that's one model, that tech tool time model, that we're kind of shifting in our district to try to get teachers to think outside of what the box has been normally and really go further with their learning.
Tell them about your Google for School channel, Chad.
Okay, so this is just my Franklin Tech. The actual YouTube page is youtube.com/FranklinTech. And this is, we started a Google account as our Franklin School District. We have 4 tech coaches here. We all share this YouTube account, so whenever we're making screencasts or doing something that we're putting on our Franklin Tech page, was it not Franklin Tech? I forget the address. Click on the author. Yeah, right there. Maybe it's something different. Franklin Tech Tube. I'm sorry. Franklin Tech was, at the time, it wouldn't let us make that. But so Franklin Tech Tube is our YouTube channel, and all it is one YouTube account that we all share. And whenever we have to make a screencast or something, we put it there. And Jenny, gave props for, we should monetize it. I'm purposely not monetizing it because I'm getting sick of the ads that play in front of YouTube videos. So that's one reason I'm choosing to not switch the monetize button. But we're doing different things with it. We're trying some things. We find as tech coaches a lot of the times we're asked to help with some of the logistics on getting something up and going. So sometimes that means making a quick little video that 3 teachers could use. And that's kind of our role as a support role. That's part of our job, and I enjoy personally doing that, just to kind of see these projects get up and off the ground and then see where the teacher takes it in the classroom. So that's a resource for you. If you're looking, you can search through the feed, or we've created a few playlists. Specifically, we've been using Google Apps a lot in our district, so a lot of them are Google focused, but we've also been bringing in other tools that would help support learning in the classroom.
And I think that this is such a great way to do self-service, personalized professional learning. And I also like that you crowdsource it and let everyone contribute to it. Carolyn and a team of us from Chicago are creating our own video channel, and then I'm working with another group of Google people to do an EdTech Slam channel, and all of it is about that. And I was joking about you monetizing it just based on how many people use it, but the whole point is that you create this maybe for your district, but you're really sharing out this knowledge for anyone to see when you put it on a public site like this, which is absolutely terrific. So
yeah, thanks.
I originally came across it when we started getting Chromebooks, and I didn't find it from you, Chad. I was a little bit hurt because I was like, wait a second, Chad's my friend, and I didn't know he had this gold mine of resources, but I Googled it, and I think I came across this through, I think, Molly Schroeder's page.
Oh, nice.
Oh, there's a whole YouTube channel full of Google support for my kids that are really helpful, and are actually, most of these videos are created in a way that the kids can watch, which I love.
Exactly.
So,
thanks. I try to purposely do that because when I'm making a video, I'm all about efficiency. And I'm trying to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. And so whenever I create a video, if it's a tool that speaks to the staff or speaks to the students, I don't care. I try to do it that middle of the road. And I also try to, where possible, leave out that it's for Franklin School District. I love our district and I love promoting that. But I also, if it's a resource that another teacher can use in another classroom somewhere else, so be it. Like that's kind of my intent with doing this. And it's, learning is free, so let's share it where we can.
Absolutely. So if you're thinking about getting off the ground and you want one, as Carolyn said, to maybe focus on one skill to start off with, some good low-hanging fruit that's going to be amazingly supportive throughout, is learn screencasting. So you can use it to support your colleagues. You can use it to create your own flipped classroom videos. You can use it to have your kids share their metacognition and learning. So it's one skill and strategy that has so many different iterations and use cases, this being one really great one. So thanks, Chad.
No problem.
So then shifting gears a little bit, what hasn't worked? What challenges have you met? And I want to start off by talking about my own Fool challenge, which I tell everyone about, which is when I first started, it was my whole app conundrum, which I'm sure you and Carolyn have to hear about all the time, so I apologize. But just that to make
I'm going to go take a nap here.
Yeah, hold on. Wait a second while Chad and Carolyn sign off. But basically, to make a long story short, I bought every app I could find to start it off with, which wasn't. Tried to find an app that fit every single need for every single thing I taught all year, content apps. And so I realized, wait a second, maybe I should focus on productivity apps, which worked for me. And I've learned along the way that some people do need some content apps, and they're not evil, they're okay. But I think learning to look before I leap was a challenge that I had to really work through, because I'd always just done things. And now that I was in uncharted territory, I realized that I needed to be a little bit more thoughtful, not cautious to the point of never leaving your safety zone, but being thoughtful about what you do and why you do it, and not doing things just for technology's sake. For a long time, I was, as Carolyn said, she's like, if paper and pencil's better, we do it. And I would say, no paper, no pencil. then I realized paper and pencil's not the enemy. If it's better, then I should use it. So that was something that I had to learn about over the years. How about you guys?
Well, I would say
Carolyn,
that,
I'll let you go first because I just talked.
okay, sure. I certainly think we faced a similar evolution in our thinking about apps that Jenny did. I think we started off saying, you know, we really wanted to begin by getting teachers and students comfortable with just having these physical devices in the classroom and saying, how is this going to change just our habits of moving around the room, of setting up for learning for the day, of you know, just dealing with having technology infused throughout the environment, not just having the one computer station by the wall, but really having this different kind of picture. And so we did start off with very, I will say, single-purpose activities or apps on the iPad. And again, we were starting with very young students. We had no idea what this was going to look like. So I think a challenge is to find your entry point where you are going to be comfortable. I wouldn't say it was a mistake to start off with that approach, but it would have been a mistake to stay there. And so to find your comfort point, and again, we started off with things like students just recording their own voices to practice their fluency, which is something we still do. Students practicing their sight words, which is something we still do. But we started out with these very discrete literacy skill building type activities. Kids were practicing their addition facts, things along those lines, until we said, hey, we are comfortable with having this stuff in the room, and the kids understand how to manage it, and they understand how to navigate, but what's next? And I think the biggest challenge is to continue to ask yourself what's next, and to make sure that you don't become complacent with a set of tools that, again, we still use these tools because they do work for us with certain skills, but we wouldn't have been transforming our instruction if we had stayed there. We wouldn't have been getting a good return on our technology investment if we had stayed there. And so one lesson that I think we learned is that to continue to share and reach out throughout a technology implementation and throughout an innovative experience for your school. We've done that through attending conferences, presenting at conferences. We keep a blog about our adventures with iPads, and all of us who are involved in the iPad program are also active Twitter users. And by having this community, the community really does continue to push and drive what we do at our school, but it also inspires us to say, hey, we've got to have something new to share. Oh, I noticed some people are actually reading our blog. We better keep it going. And so I think by continuing to ask yourself what's next, but by continuing to connect with other people who are also asking themselves that question, I think that helps overcome some of the potential challenge of stagnation or of comfort or of staying sort of at that substitution augmentation level. I think the more you can connect with like-minded educators, the more inspired you're likely to become, and the more wonderful things you're going to see happening at your school.
Very cool.
Awesome. I think some of the challenges we met, I started making a list as Carolyn was talking, and so I'll focus on just a few here. One of the big challenges, I think, is scale. I think, you know, a lot of us have a knack for finding a cool app that we will use individually, or doing something that maybe organizes or makes us a little more efficient. Like I said earlier, I really like efficiency. I like finding that new app that will do something in my life that will make it more easy or straightforward or streamlined. I think when we get to scale in the classroom is where we do hit a challenge, and trying to figure out, not only with the gadgets that we have access to, whether they be laptops or iPads or Chromebooks or whatever, but how do we also scale that where the teacher can still facilitate the learning and the students can hopefully still go further with their learning. And that ties into the next example of that teacher in the classroom being willing to kind of let go and trust that if there is technology in the classroom, the kids are going to help figure it out. The teacher doesn't have to be the master of understanding how the Android phone works and how the iPhone works and how the BlackBerry works if the kid brings a BlackBerry to school, or, you know, whatever. So being able to let go and learn with the students, I think that's a challenge that a lot of teachers do have a problem overcoming, because we're so used to a society where the teacher was the runner of the room, the manager of the room, the controller of the room, and had to know everything before letting their students step out the door or, you know, try something new. So that's a shift just in educational philosophy, I think, that's going on right now. But it It's a challenge I think we face, and I face it when I do meet with teachers that want to take a project that they did last year, and it's that time of year again, so we're just going to do the same project again. Okay, well, what are we doing different? How can we go further with it? How can we change it? How can we adapt it? Kind of like Carolyn mentioned, how can we make it more personal to what the students are learning? Technical challenges, I don't know if you guys are facing this or not, but we're hitting bandwidth issues occasionally where we have a lot of technology and a lot of gadgets in our building, and people are using them, but I'm starting to question how they're using them. What are we really doing? Are we just having laptops in a classroom where kids are just taking notes in Google Docs? Okay, well, great if they're doing that, because if it's digital, maybe they'll have better access to it, but how do we tie that with, maybe another classroom who's trying to stream some videos that will take their learning further and trying to really personalize that there? So, that's just bandwidth is just an issue that we're looking at as a district too, and how to combat that a little bit. So some of those things that we're facing, and really just trying to shift education, I think, in the right direction for the kids.
Gosh, you're so right about bandwidth, and that's something that we've actually, which goes on to the next one, which is,
It's almost like I planned that.
Yeah, that was such a good segue, because lessons in the journey to redefinition. I think going back to the look before you leap, now that I work with 25 schools and not just my own classroom, I definitely learned about how to do rollouts in a much more thoughtful way. I think if you'd asked me 2 years ago, I was very much the let's get iPads for everyone. And I want to highlight two points of that sentence, which is I said iPads and everyone. And today I would never say that. I would never just say, we've learned to be device agnostic and not to say iPads, period. Yes, they're sexy. Yes, everyone thinks that iPads are the wave of the future, and for a lot of students they are. But I want to also put out there to our listeners to thinking about device decisions. Why are you purchasing the device? Is it right for your grade level, your subject level, your content, everything? Because it might not always be a tablet computer, and someday maybe an Android tablet might usurp the iPad as the top dog for tablet computers. It's not too far off, even though years ago we would have said it would never have happened. So not to be such a slave to brand and everything else, that's been hard for us to swallow, but we've been experimenting with other devices like Nooks and Chromebooks, and to be open-minded, even if at first we want to say one thing is better than the other. And then secondly, for everyone, I think going back to both Chad and Carolyn, thinking, is everyone ready to go one-to-one? Is everybody ready to take that leap? And not that they can't someday, but not to force it on them, A. And B, is our building ready? What's the infrastructure like? Do we have the power, the wireless networking? I think more of my life than I would like to admit is talking about OptiMan circuits and how 802.11 and what is our bandwidth, and can we get Apple TVs into the classroom? And I never thought of that as a classroom teacher, and I don't think principals really think of it either, because usually you have someone else thinking of it for you. So before you spend the dollars, not that you shouldn't spend the dollars, make sure that you have all your ducks in a row so that when the dollars are spent, it's spent well. Because what's worse than not spending the dollars is spending it, getting a bad experience, and then basically teaching a lesson to an entire building of children and teachers that technology isn't worthwhile, because that's not the message we want to give to them. So to be thoughtful is something that I've definitely learned in my journey. We have just a few minutes left. So Chad and Carolyn, if you have any parting words about lessons, we have about 60 seconds left that you want to leave with. Please feel free to share.
I think you said everything I was somewhat thinking, so I will leave it with that.
Awesome.
I just have one, and I'll take about 20 seconds for this, and just share the idea that when you are doing something new at school, make sure you involve your parent community, because sometimes school looks very different from what parents themselves experience, and if you can get parents in the classroom, explain your goals, explain how technology is improving the students' lives and the students' learning, they will be your best allies. But otherwise, they might be a little confused or a little concerned that the students aren't reading and writing anymore, for example, or have misunderstandings about what's happening. So do involve the parents, invite them in, and it will really help your program.
I would say get your administrators in there too, because they need to see what you're doing as a teacher in order to go when budget time comes along and seek more money for more technology or bandwidth or whatnot as well.
Absolutely, and perfectly timed. We have about 12 seconds left. Thank you so much, Chad and Carolyn, for joining us today and sharing your expertise and knowledge. Here's how you can contact us. We hope you learned a lot today, and we will see you in the Twitterverse. Take care, everyone. Bye.